I stay, will you stay? If I go, will you go? If I pay, will you play? Do you know what I know?
How's it going, everybody? It's Saiyan Prince back again with another video. A few weeks ago, I posted a question of what video people would be most interested to see on my channel, and an emulation showcase on my modded OLED Switch won by a landslide. So today I'll showcase just a few consoles and games that can run well on a modded Switch, as well as a few that don't quite meet the bar in my opinion. Most of these I'll go through pretty quickly, so if you're interested in something specific, just check the timestamps down below. Let's get into it. So the first system on my list is actually going to be Game Boy Color. As you can imagine, the Nintendo Switch has no trouble playing Game Boy Color ROMs, so I just wanted to showcase some of this really quickly. This is actually Pokemon Anniversary Crystal. This is a ROM hack, but any Pokemon game or any kind of Game Boy Color game, it's going to have no issues. And I'm actually using the RetroArch Gambat core. This is the newest version of the Gambat core as of December 2023. So, like I said, this is not going to have any issues. As you can tell, it's running full speed. Everything's just great. This is a great way to play Game Boy Color. And of course, just like in my last video, I do have Nintendo Switch Online. It is fully functional on my modded Switch. This is the online program that you can pay for monthly, and I am playing a little bit of Link's Awakening DX. This is a Game Boy Color game on Nintendo Switch Online. Another great way to play Game Boy Color. Even though I prefer RetroArch, this is still an amazing way to play some of the old classics. Okay, switching over to one of my favorite retro consoles, the Game Boy Advance. The Game Boy Advance plays really well on a modded Nintendo Switch. You're not going to have any trouble playing Game Boy Advance. This particular emulator is RetroArch using the MGBA core and Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. Another retro console that a modded Nintendo Switch can run easily is the NES or Famicom system. I'm running RetroArch once again using the Nestopia UE core, and this is Super Mario Bros. 3. Next up in the timeline is the SNES or Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Once again, I'm using RetroArch, but this time I'm using the SNES 9X core. And this is The Lion King. For anybody that remembers this game, it's basically impossible, but RetroArch supports save states, so you might be able to go back to this one and finally beat it. Good luck. I wanted to sneak one more Super Nintendo game in here. Again, this is running the SNES 9X core, and this is The Adventures of Batman and Robin. Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. This is Sega Mega Drive or Sega Genesis using the RetroArch Genesis Plus GX core. This is obviously Streets of Rage 2. It's a classic if you haven't played it. A little bit more Sega Genesis gameplay here with Disney's Toy Story. Again, the Genesis seems to run really well on a modded Nintendo Switch. No major issues here. Okay, now we're kind of getting into the harder to run consoles on the Switch. This is the Sega Dreamcast or Naomi. This is the Flycast core in RetroArch playing Crazy Taxi 2. There's also a standalone Flycast emulator, which seems to do pretty well on some games, whereas I noticed the Flycast core does well on others. So I can't recommend one more than the other because both seem to play some games better than the other one. And I'll showcase a little bit of both just so you guys can see. Sticking with the Flycast core in RetroArch, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 plays great using this core. I had mixed results using the standalone emulator for this one, so this is how I would recommend to play this particular game. Okay, this is the first game that we're showcasing where I'm actually using the Flycast standalone emulator. This is the master build from 12.3, so if y'all's games don't run quite as good as this, check out the master builds on their website. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description below. And this is Sonic Adventure 2 on the Sega Dreamcast. And as much as it saddens me to say it, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 does not play 100% on a modded Nintendo Switch. Now, this particular showcase is showing off the Flycast standalone emulator once again for Dreamcast, and this is actually the one I had better performance on, but neither this one or the RetroArch core played at 100% speed. Sad to say it, we're just not quite there yet with this one. Next up, we'll show a little bit of Sony PlayStation. This is the original PS1 using RetroArch PCSX Rearm Core, playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Obviously, PS1 is going to play really great on the modded OLED Switch. It's a fantastic way to play it. A little bit more PS1 gameplay here, still using RetroArch with the PCSX rearm core. This is Disney Hercules. Obviously, all of the PS1 games are going to play great on the modded Switch. I just wanted to showcase a little bit more of this classic. Okay, switching gears again, this is Nintendo DS emulation using MelonDS Standalone DS Emulator, and this is Dragon Ball Z Attack of the Saiyans. This is actually a game that I didn't play much as a kid, but now I'm actually really getting into this. It's pretty cool. It's a turn-based style RPG with some of the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z characters that covers the Attack of the Saiyans arc. I highly recommend this one if you haven't checked it out. And this is just a little bit more gameplay using the MelonDS Standalone DS Emulator. This game is Pokemon Black, I believe it's Gen 5. This was one of the best Pokemon games in my opinion, so I highly recommend this one as well. The DS is really a great system to play on a modded Switch. Just make sure you're using the standalone emulator and not a RetroArch core for any of these. This one just performs better. Next up is the Nintendo 3DS using the Citra 3DS core in RetroArch. This is probably the most requested system that I show off, and depending on the game, it's actually hit or miss, but this particular game, Dragon Ball Fusions, runs perfectly, 100% on it. It's a fantastic way to play it. A little bit more gameplay here of the Citra Core using RetroArch. This is obviously Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, the 3DS version. This plays fantastic as well. It is basically 100% speed. You may have to let your shaders cache for this one, but it's really a fantastic way to play it. So this is another game that plays really well using the RetroArch 3DS core. Showing off another console that I never thought I'd be able to play on a modded Nintendo Switch. This is PSP emulation using the PPSSPP standalone emulator. Now this is the build from June 21st of 23, and I'm actually playing Mortal Kombat Deception here. I'll leave a link below to this build so you guys can download it and try it yourself. I wouldn't actually recommend the PSP core and RetroArch. The PPSSPP emulator, standalone emulator, seems to just perform much better. So this is the way I would recommend to play it. And Mortal Kombat Deception is one of my all-time favorites as well. The last game that I wanted to show off is Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Again, I'm using the PPSSPP standalone emulator, the build from 6/21/23. Please keep in mind though, when it comes to PSP, something worth remembering is that not all games are going to play 100%. I know there's a few games like God of War, for example, that they're just not going to play at 100%. It's going to be choppy, it's going to be slow at times, so keep that in mind. You don't want to mod your Switch with just PSP in mind, but plenty of games do work, so just try them out if you're interested and let me know your results as well. Alright, if you made it this far, I appreciate you guys sticking around to the end of the video. I know this one was kind of a long one, but I wanted to quickly showcase as many gaming consoles and games as I could, while also not taking too much of your time. But if you guys stuck around to the end, I appreciate it so much. If you could leave a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and if you have any questions or comments or something else you want to see, just let me know down below. Okay, later.